Okay, this is a video that I promised you of showing you how to construct a rectangle. I was going to do a video where I was actually showing you with my compass, and I'm not able to get the technology to work the way that I had planned. So this is what we've got. I do have a rectangle constructed here, but I want to show you step by step. So you got to follow along with me. I will highlight things as I go. We are starting with segment CD is the only thing that we have right now, and that you can see right here highlighted in black. Okay, so how do I construct a rectangle with segment CD as one of the sides of the rectangle? That's the question. So the biggest mistake that we're making with this one is we are trying to do a perpendicular bisector of segment CD. So I'll kind of model for you what that looks like. That's us doing these arcs from point C and point D, and then drawing a line through here. Pardon my bad lines, but you're going to get the idea here. And then what we did is we created a right angle right there at the midpoint of CD. No matter what you do from that point on, I am not going to be convinced that this angle over here is a right angle or this angle over here is a right angle based on the stuff that's in green on the screen right now. Okay, so I'm just going to propose that that does nothing helpful for us. Like, I don't know how that does anything good. If you do that, I'm not going to say that you can't like move on from there, but it's just totally extra unnecessary. So we're trying to do this in the most efficient way, which means I want to focus on we need one right angle. We technically need 4. We'll talk about that in a second. We need one right angle right now, and it needs to be at either C or D. So I chose to make my right angle at D. You could have just as easily kind of flipped this and done it at C. So my first move was to extend segment CD. And notice that I did it with an arrow. I really like to, when I'm extending a line, so of course I'm using my straight edge. When I'm extending a line, I like to put an arrow because I haven't yet determined how long I want that. Okay, my purpose in extending that is I want to create a segment such that D is the midpoint. Let me repeat that. I'm creating a segment that has D as the midpoint. So you've got one option is to create circle D, as you can see that I did. So from D, I took the radius all the way to C, and I drew this circle. And again, I know this kind of ruins the integrity of the circles when I try to highlight it, but I'm trying to show you. That gave me a point, E, such that the segment CE has midpoint D. So at that point, when I then do my perpendicular bisector, and connect that, it has to pass through D. And more importantly, it gives me a right angle. So remember, perpendicular bisector does two things. It cuts something in half. So I just cut CE in half. Guess what? That puts me at D, and it gives me a right angle. So that is the way to get the right angle. Now, one more thing I want to say about that. Okay, technically, the parts of that I needed, if you want to kind of like just not do as many arcs or as big of arcs, we needed this arc here at E. So you didn't need that whole circle D that I have in green. So we needed that yellow arc, and then we could have made the other yellow arcs from there. Now, what a lot of you had on your paper when you attempted to do this is you actually did extend and make CE. But then you made circles that were all the same size with radius CD. So I'm going to draw in blue what you had. You had a circle at E that went like this. And then you had a circle at C that did the same thing. Okay, that's not great, but the idea is that the circles met right at D. Remember, for our perpendicular bisector, we need the circles to not just meet. We need them to overlap. Do you see how the yellow arcs are overlapping? So we need to open our compass further than the length of CD. a little bit past halfway on CE, past halfway to make those arcs intersect. Okay. So I'm going to get rid of the blue because we don't want those. Okay, so we now have a starting point for a parallelogram that is going to have a right angle. Notice my phrasing there. At this point, I'd like you to think of this construction as a parallelogram. And actually, that's the only difference between a rectangle and a square, is they both have right angles. From the right angle, for a rectangle, you're going to make a parallelogram. For a rhombus, you're going to make a square. I mean, for a square, you're going to make a rhombus. So, since we're making a rectangle, we need two sets of congruent sides, not all congruent sides. Okay, so we have this yellow line here, and that continues up kind of indefinitely. So I could put an arrow there, would be a good idea. On there, I'm going to pick a point. Okay, yes, I get to pick a point because I didn't give you the length of the second side. Okay, so remember we have CD that we're working from here. And I now have this other corner that I've created. And I'm picking a point at A to work from. So that's now my second side length. Okay, so what I need to do now is I need to create a segment CD on the other side. So from A, I'm going to use the radius of CD. I'm measuring with my compass right now from here to here. And then I'm going to move my compass up to A. I'm going to make a circle around A. That has the compass length of CD. So if you made the whole circle, it would go something like this. But really what we're after is the arc that I first had there. Okay, I don't yet know where my fourth point is. If it's going to be B, I don't know where B is going to be. B can be anywhere on here and be the right distance from A. So I need those two intersecting circles. So the other circle that I need is not going to be the same size. That would be for a rhombus, which would be making a square. I need a circle that has the other side congruent. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to get the compass length of DA. I'm going to measure from here to here. I'm going to move my compass over to point C. I've got the point on C, and I'm going to make an arc that has that giant compass length. So if I do go and draw the whole circle, what is going to go somewhere all the way around there. Okay, not a great circle there at the end. Picture that's going to be a little bit bigger. But again, really what we're going for is this and this. These intersecting arcs. That's going to get me a pair of sides congruent there and a pair of sides congruent there. So that gives me my fourth point. I should call that B or whatever I want to call it. And then if I were to draw in and connect the dots there and connect the dots there, in black you see the rectangle that I created. Hopefully that makes sense. Again, you can just do arcs and not have the whole circle there if that's helpful. Okay, I really want you to try this. I know that this isn't the best rendition of me actually showing you, but you should also be able to follow the words, and I'm trying to highlight things as I go. One more thing I want to throw out there before I end this video. I did mention that a rectangle should have 4 right angles. Now, because I know I created a parallelogram, we know some things about parallelograms, that the opposite angles are congruent to each other. So if I did in fact create a right angle down here at angle D, I do know angle B is a right angle. And then because these two have to be congruent and have to add up to 180, they're both right angles, 90 degrees. So I can absolutely verify that. I did have some people that did, and this is another great method, did a right angle at D, repeated the same process to get a right angle at C. So you could extend the line this way, do a perpendicular bisector here, get a right angle at C. And you essentially are creating 2 perpendicular lines. Those would in fact be parallel. And then instead of getting the intersecting circles here, you would have just needed to like get the lengths. Because you would have had 2 lines that you knew the third and fourth points were on. You just would have had to verify those lengths were the same. So that's another option that you have. I think the perpendicular is kind of the hardest part. So that's why I'm showing you this way, as I think the most efficient and maybe the easiest with what you already know. Okay. helps. Good luck with your constructing a rectangle and a square. You should practice both of them. Of course, you can ask me more questions in class.